The crystal chandeliers of the Riverside Grand Hotel cast dancing reflections across the opulent ballroom of downtown Boston. Tech entrepreneur Marcus Sinclair had spared no expense for his foundation's annual fundraiser. 31-year-old Zoe Chan adjusted her borrowed cocktail dress. Simple navy, the only formal attire she could afford on her interpreter's salary, and fought the urge to leave early. She was here as a guest service interpreter for the event, part of the nonprofit organization's outreach team. Though no one had requested her services yet, she remained alert, positioned strategically near the registration area, ready if needed. That's when she noticed him. A teenage boy stood alone near the refreshment table, dressed impeccably in a tailored blazer, watching the crowd with an intensity that seemed beyond his years. Unlike the other teenagers scattered throughout the ballroom, he wasn't checking his phone or trying to blend into the background. He was observing, his eyes tracking the movement of people's lips with practiced focus. Zoe's professional instincts activated immediately. The boy was deaf. She watched as his father, Marcus Sinclair himself, made his grand entrance. The room erupted in applause. The billionaire who had revolutionized renewable energy technology, the philanthropist who had donated $50 million to deaf education initiatives worldwide. Cameras flashed. Donors rushed to shake his hand. Not once did Marcus look toward his son. Not once did anyone approach the boy. Zoe made her decision. She crossed the room and caught the boy's eye. "Hello," she signed, her hands forming clear, welcoming gestures in American Sign Language. "I'm Zoe. What's your name?" The transformation was instantaneous. The careful mask of indifference fell away, replaced by genuine delight. "I'm Dylan," he signed back, his movements fluid and expressive. "You know ASL?" "I'm an interpreter," Zoe replied. "I work with the nonprofit your father funds. Actually, how long has it been since someone talked to you directly?" Dylan's smile faltered slightly. "Longer than I care to admit. Thanks for noticing me." As they conversed, Zoe noticed Dylan's remarkable intelligence, his dry humor, his hunger for genuine connection. He was 17, a senior at a mainstream private school, and seemingly isolated despite, or perhaps because of, his father's immense wealth and advocacy for deaf causes. "My father donates millions to help deaf children he doesn't know," Dylan signed with bitter humor, while his own son stands alone at his charity galas. Later that evening, Zoe stepped outside for air and overheard an urgent conversation near the loading dock. "Dylan's been accepted to MIT early admission," a woman's voice said. Dylan's mother, Zoe, would later learn. "He's brilliant, but he needs proper support systems in place." "I've already hired the best interpreters money can buy," Marcus replied dismissively. "The school has excellent accommodations. He'll be fine." "Marcus, he's not fine. He's lonely." "When was the last time you had a real conversation with him?" "In his language." "I've funded more deaf education programs than most people donate to charity in their lifetime. That's not the same as learning to communicate with your own son." Silence followed, then Marcus's voice, colder now. "This conversation is over, Catherine." Zoe stood frozen, her heart racing. The parallels were unmistakable. A brilliant deaf teenager, a wealthy parent pouring money into causes while failing to connect with their own child. She didn't follow Dylan that night. Instead, she returned inside and helped facilitate the rest of the gala, her mind churning with the broken family dynamic she'd witnessed. 2 weeks later, Zoe received a call from an agency she didn't work with. "We have a private contract inquiry," the coordinator said. "A client wants to hire you directly for personal interpreting services. The pay is substantial." Interested, Zoe was skeptical but desperate. Her nonprofit job barely covered rent. She agreed to meet the client. The Sinclair penthouse overlooked Boston Harbor, all glass and minimalist design. Marcus Sinclair himself answered the door, his expression unreadable. "Miss Chun," he said formally, "thank you for coming. I have a proposition for you." He didn't apologize for the gala. He didn't acknowledge that she'd confronted him with her presence by befriending his son. Instead, he was direct. "I want to hire you to teach me ASL. Properly. Completely. I should have learned years ago." Zoe blinked. This wasn't what she'd expected. Mr. Sinclair, That's commendable, but I'm aware it takes time, he interrupted. I'm prepared to commit. Intensive sessions. Whatever it takes. I can pay. He named a figure that made Zoe's eyes widen. Quarterly. She needed the money. She also needed to know what had changed his mind. What happened? She asked directly. At the gala, you barely acknowledged Dylan existed. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's precisely the problem. And I'm tired of living that way. Over their first lesson, Zoe learned the story. Dylan's mother had died when Dylan was 9. Cancer, sudden and devastating. Dylan had been deaf from birth, had grown up bilingual in spoken English and ASL. But in his grief, Marcus had made a fateful decision. I couldn't bear to hear ASL in the house. Marcus admitted, his voice hollow. It reminded me of Catherine. She was the one who insisted on a fully bilingual household. She said language was love. After she died, I couldn't face that philosophy. He paused. I made the interpreters the gatekeepers of communication. Dylan learned to accept that his father wouldn't speak his native language. And I learned to avoid the one thing that might have kept us connected. Over the following months, Zoe met with Marcus twice weekly. He was an exacting student, demanding perfection, frustrated by the slow progress. But beneath his impatience was genuine determination. I have limited time, he said during their 10th session, struggling through fingerspelling. Dylan leaves for MIT in 8 months. I've missed 17 years. I'm not going to waste the time I have left. Zoe taught him vocabulary related to Dylan's interests, technology, music, art. She taught him how to tell his son, I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry. She taught him emotion beyond business transactions. I've spent my career studying how to communicate across cultures, Marcus said one afternoon. How to negotiate with governments and corporations. But I couldn't learn the language my own child speaks natively. You're learning now, Zoe reminded him. That's what matters. Dylan's high school held its annual student art exhibition in April. Dylan, it turned out, was an accomplished photographer. Zoe attended, having been invited by Dylan. When Marcus arrived, late as usual, he stopped in shock before Dylan's portfolio of black and white photographs. They were stunning. Raw compositions that captured emotion and isolation with devastating precision. One series showed empty chairs, empty rooms, empty spaces. Another depicted silhouettes of people talking, their mouths open, surrounded by darkness. The final image showed a single hand against a wall of light. Marcus didn't move for a long time. When he approached Dylan, surrounded by other students and parents, something shifted. Marcus caught his son's attention and, slowly but deliberately, signed, These are beautiful. You're talented. I'm proud of you. It was basic, his signing still halting, but it was real. For the first time in nearly a decade, father and son communicated directly. Dylan's eyes filled with tears. He signed back, Thank you. But the moment fractured when the headmaster took the stage to announce the winner of this year's Catherine Sinclair Memorial Award for Artistic Excellence, established 5 years ago by Marcus in his late wife's memory. The award provided a full scholarship to a prestigious summer arts program in Berlin. This year's recipient, the headmaster announced, is Dylan Sinclair. Dylan's face went pale. He looked at his father, then back at the headmaster, then at the ground. He didn't approach the stage. Instead, he walked out of the exhibition hall. Marcus found Dylan on the school's front steps. Zoe, following at a distance, watched from inside the doors. Dylan's hands were flying in rapid, furious signs that Marcus clearly couldn't follow at his beginner's level. Zoe stepped outside. He's angry, she translated. He says you made a decision about his future without consulting him. He didn't want the Berlin scholarship. He wanted to work with a local nonprofit developing accessible technology for deaf students. Marcus's expression crumpled. I thought the program would be meaningful. Catherine loved Berlin. I wanted, but Dylan was signing again, his movements sharp with pain. He says you've been doing this his whole life. Zoe continued to translate, making decisions about what he needs, throwing money at problems instead of asking him what he wants. Dylan, Marcus began, but his hands fumbled with the signs he'd been practicing. Zoe watched something break open in the Billionaire. The composure cracked. The performance ended. I didn't know how to be your father, Marcus signed slowly, using every word Zoe had taught him. After your mother died, I was lost. I thought throwing money at causes would mean I was doing something good, but it was just avoiding you. Dylan stood rigid, his jaw clenched. I'm sorry, Marcus continued, signing with painful slowness. I should have learned this language. Should have talked to you. I failed you. You sent me to boarding schools. Dylan signed, his movements now slower, more controlled than before. With other deaf kids, which was good, but why did you have to disappear from my life? I didn't know how to communicate, Marcus admitted. Every time I looked at you, I saw your mother, and I couldn't face how much I'd failed her. Failed you. So I hired people to do the job instead. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Dylan asked, why are you learning to sign now? Marcus took a breath. Because I watched you create those photographs, and I realized you were trying to tell me something. Show me something. And I couldn't even see you. Dylan's expression wavered. Anger and hope and old grief all mixed together. I can't undo the years I missed, Marcus continued. But I don't want to miss anything else. Dylan looked at his father for a long moment. Then, hesitantly, he signed the Berlin program. I don't want to go, but maybe we could go together sometime? Visit. Mom always wanted to take me. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I like that very much. He raised his hands and signed, slowly and carefully. I love you, Dylan. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Dylan stepped forward and pulled his father into a fierce embrace. 6 months later, Dylan stood at his high school graduation. As valedictorian, he delivered his speech in sign language with professional interpreters voicing his words. From her seat, Zoe watched Marcus in the front row, his expression overflowing with pride. Dylan's speech touched on communication, connection, and the courage to bridge divides. My mother taught me, Dylan signed, that language is how we show love. My father spent years avoiding my language, thinking it was avoiding his grief. But what he was really avoiding was me. And what he learned, eventually, was that love doesn't require sound. It requires presence. It requires showing up. After the ceremony, Marcus and Dylan found Zoe. We have news, Dylan signed excitedly. He gestured to his father. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing photographs of a newly renovated space in their penthouse. Dylan's going to run a nonprofit from here during his college breaks, Marcus explained. Accessible technology for deaf students. We're calling it the Catherine Sinclair Initiative for Communication Access. And Dad's learning more signs every week, Dylan added. Now he's trying to teach me business vocabulary, so I can help it with his company. It's pretty funny watching him fumble through quarterly reports. Marcus smiled, genuinely, openly. I've decided to step down as CEO next year. Dylan's interested in sustainable technology. We're going to build something together. Zoe felt tears prick her eyes. That's wonderful. We want you to be the program director, Dylan signed. For the initiative, you're the one who taught us that communication isn't about showing off how much you know. It's about really seeing another person. Zoe looked between them, the brilliant young man and the powerful businessman who had finally learned that the most important language isn't the one you speak aloud, but the one you speak with your heart. I'd be honored, she said, signing the words as she spoke them. As she watched them leave together, laughing and signing freely with each other, Zoe understood the true power of connection. Sometimes it takes breaking everything down to rebuild something real.